Good evening. Welcome to another episode of the number one show, Bantaba. I'm your host, Chris, taking you through this session. Today, we'll talk about migration and brethren in Africa. Before moving further, I would like to introduce you to our guests on the show today from the Far Eastern Federal University. Here we have Dr. Mubarak Sadiq from Nigeria, a master's in PhD candidate. Dr. Mendy Peter from Gambia, a Master's in International Relations candidate. Mr. Lawrence Waya from Nigeria, a Master's in Public Health candidate. Thank you for honoring our invitation. Let me start by giving you some background information about this topic. In the past decades, Africa has experienced massive migration and wandering from the continent, owing to one or more factors that are yet to be addressed. According to the push-pull theory, to understand an individual's motive to migrate, you have to look at the sociological factors. It explains it on the basis of differences in the level of development between the origin and destination countries. When we talk about the push-pull theory, we're basically referring to in the origin country, that is where the people are migrating from. And there are particular reasons why people are migrating. So those are the push factors, right? And when we look at the pull factors, that is where the country they are migrating to, and we know the reasons why they are going to that particular country. So it's like something is pushing them from their country and it's pulling them from their country. So what can we say? What are your ideas about this push and pull factors? What do you think? Personally, I can say some of the reasons why they migrate from their country and to other countries. But because we have you guys in the show today, we'd like to hear your opinion about it. Mr. Lawrence, if you'd like to share your light on that.
All right, thank you, presenter. I'm going to start with the fact that migration, in its actual sense, based on the push or pull factors, we have bilateral agreements between countries. So, in essence, migration mustn't be a push or pull. Sometimes it's just based on the necessities of educating your populace. So you see government, state, federal, even local, sponsoring their citizens in order to acquire advanced knowledge. Pari passu may be based on countries that are colonized, in the essence where they have bilateral relations. For example, Nigeria can send so many of our young youths to United Kingdom because we were colonized by the British. So that is why you see so many Nigerians there, and equally so many English-speaking countries like United States, Canada, Australia. So you see so many African countries who are English-speaking migrating, not because of a push or a pull, sometimes to acquire knowledge, but based on the trends that started from early 1960s or late 1960s, when there became this need, or rather from early 1980s, 1960s, Africa was beautiful. Nobody was going away. Our fathers went to school and came back to the country. For example, Clem Chikadli, the first MD of Electric Company of Nigeria. Yeah, 1956 to 1960, he stood in United Kingdom. He came back and became the MD, the first electric company in Nigeria. He was an indigene. He was even the one that championed during the war from 1967 to 1970. He was the one that was in charge of everything electrical. So he didn't abscond. So the angle I'm trying to bring in is that from the onset, migration was like an integral between countries. Then when the economy became bad, early 1980s, that is when push or pull started coming. And the push or pull were transcending. It didn't start all totally. Some people will go, then after so many years, you see them, they will fall back. And what is this push-pull? Economic reasons, political reasons, instability, insecurity. So we now have donor country and recipient country. So the donor countries are what? Mostly African nations. And the recipient countries are what? The Western nations. The, in quotes, the developed nations.
Thank you very much. Mubarak, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, actually, I completely agree with what Mr. Lowell just explained. And the basic problem that if we're talking about, let's say, the pull effect, this has to do majorly with the what are those things that attract people. Yeah, because somebody can't be comfortable in where he is and just in the morning decide to wake up and jackpot, as we call it in Nigeria, and just decide to disappear from his country just to go and people normally travel because they set it in their mind that we are going to find our greener pasture, like we are going to find that light that we've been looking for in our lives. So if people are targeting a specific place, or let's say, as Mr. Lawrence has mentioned, the developed countries, then that means there must be something there that their own country of origin don't have. And most of the time, as he mentioned again, it's all about education system, security, and the economy itself in general. We have this phenomena that our people, especially in Nigeria, like it's like a phrase that they say, last school has come. This, whenever I hear this phrase, it actually breaks my heart because that means it's showing you how deep the people lost trust in the educational system of the country. And when that trust has been lost, there's no going back. People will always seek a better place.
Thank you very much for your contributions. Quickly, I would like to read about one obstacle we face in Africa that is, let me say, it's very important. It's integral to the fact that people are migrating from Africa to other countries. So we have obstacles to effective intra-African skills mobility. The poor application and sometimes absence of regulation of workers' mobility in Africa hinders the opportunities that can be brought by intra-continental migration, particularly during periods of economic crisis or political tensions, when reticence towards interregional migration tends to expand. So I'm going to give a brief statistics, right? The national preference, we know what the national preference means. Basically, many countries favor the recruitment of their own national to come in unemployment, so lowers the likelihood of effective skills mobility in the region. So in 2017, 3 African regions accounted for more than 85% of intracontinental migration. These are West Africa with 40%, followed by East Africa with 34%, and Central Africa with less than 12%. These regions function through regional economic communities, respectively, the Economic Community of West African States, the ECOWAS, the East African Community, EAC, and the Economic Community of Central African States, the ECCAS. Amongst them, ECOWAS was the first to implement legally binding instruments for its member states to commit to the free mobility among its members. Although most of the mobility was towards Nigeria, which is considered a migratory hub. However, in 1984, Nigeria expelled more than 2 million African workers, despite the fact that it was one of the signatories of the ECOWAS Protocol on the free movement of persons, rights of residence and establishment. Similarly, in the Southern African Development Community, SADS, South Africa expresses reticence to the promotion of interregional mobility because of migratory pressures from other African countries. Now, the question is, why is this so? Why is that, despite this measure to allow intra-continental mobility of our African skilled workers, why is it that there are still some lapses? People still don't tend to move from one African country to another. They would rather go to other continents. They would rather go for greener pastures in maybe US, UK, United Nations, United Kingdom, Australia, and maybe Ireland, for example, and other places like that. Why do we have these policies, but we don't implement them in Africa? We don't take them seriously. What can you tell us about it?
I think, like you said earlier, migration within Africa is more than migration out of Africa by a small margin. I think by 51% within Africa, and about I think 44% outside of Africa. So people, if you look at that, then you would say people preferably want to stay in Africa than move out. I wouldn't say that that's the case. People I would actually want to move out. It's just because of some hurdles, with the application systems, and it's more difficult, I believe, to pass through legal systems to get to the UK or Germany, and it's much more easier, like you said earlier, to move around within ECOWAS. And that's a good thing. Migration within Africa is a good thing, and I think all African regional bodies should embrace that. But I do maybe have a problem with, and I believe everybody should, at least by 50%, is migration out of Africa. And I believe we will have to talk about this a lot. That's the point and contention in our discussion. And migration out of Africa does not constitute a lot of percentage in relation to other continents or migrations that happen from the UK to America, for example. Migration, the percentage of migration that Africa constitutes globally is only 14%. So Asia constitutes like 41%. You have even Europe, 22%. So those people migrate more than Africans migrate. That is outside of their own continents. Now, when it comes to migration outside of Africa, again, the pull factor, the attractiveness that developed countries, for example, America and the UK, the mechanisms they employ in order to attract Africans, sometimes that's what I have a problem with. We have our push factors which are problematic, of course. That means it is our problem. It is we Africans, governments, that should find solutions to them. But you would see Germany, for example. It's cool. It's a cool country. They pay well. Germany now has an institution in Ghana that facilitates, the movement of skilled workers from Ghana to Germany. Now that's poaching for me. You get it. I do understand that in Ghana, there's a lot of employment, not only in Ghana, but in Nigeria also. They stay in Ghana, no work to do. So the Germans come and be like, well, we can offer you jobs. Now they are in Ghana recruiting people to take the people. For me, it's cool for those people, for their families, because at the end of the day, they are going to send funds back home. They are going to be skilled, they are going to earn more experience and skills in Germany, which if they come back to Ghana, is going to benefit the Ghanaians. The thing is, normally, most people do not come back. At least when they have the physical ability, the strength, to come back. Most people, when they come back, it's like when they are already aging and things like that. So the way they help their countries of origin is by remitting funds back. So I don't think it's. I do have a mixed feeling. It has, like we said before we began this discussion, it has its advantages, of course, migration, and it has its disadvantages. When countries, Western countries, for example, try to attract people, then that becomes a problem. Another example that I can give, Nigeria, for example, we are losing a lot of doctors, in Nigeria. A lot of doctors to America, to the UK, and things like that. So,
well, I just wanted to stick to that place. We are still going to talk about the migration of professionals there. Yes, I don't want us to. So, thank you very much. Mr. Lawrence said the other time that before it was like an agreement between two countries, right? So the receiving country and the donor country, they have an agreement. So, and that was how it was back in the days. People, our forefathers, they went to the recipient countries, they study, and they go back to the country. I'll just give an example, right? So we know Azikwe from Nigeria. So he studied in the Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, and it was instrumental in bringing Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana also to Lincoln University in the United States. And after that, they had bachelor's degree and master's degree. So it was brain drain, but it was beneficial at the same time. So from the recent brain drain Africa has experienced, what can you say? What do you think about the benefits of brain drain to Africa? Of course, we can look at it this way, that the losses are more than the gain, but still there are some things that we gain, that Africa gain from brain drain. So what can you say? What can you say about it? What do you think, in your opinion, are the benefits of brain drain in Africa?
Yeah, when we say brain drain, it has these negative connotation, because when something is draining, that means it's like leaking. So it's like our brains, our smartest people, are actually being leaked out of the continent. Okay? Okay, so if we think about it that way, then we say it's not a good thing. But again, the benefits could be that if those people actually, the skills that they acquire abroad are actually shared back home in their home countries. If doctors in America, for example, can't share their skills with, let's say, with the doctors that are home in Nigeria, or the IT specialists, for example, then that's a good thing. Sending money back home also, most of us, especially in the Gambia, for example, most of us, like 20% of our GDP comes from those monies that are sent by people that are abroad. So that helps us a lot. My family depends on that, for example, by and large. You get it? I myself depend on that by and large. And also there are ideas, norms, you get it? Let's say human rights, even though you may like them or not like them, but norms, culture, music that are being shared, because when people live abroad, they see different things. When you go to Moscow, for example, you see the metro, you see how it works, how fast it is. Get it? I think you might want to also have that in Nigeria. You might want to support a movement or a cause that will also have a similar fast transportation system in Nigeria, and other things that can that are good in the West. Electricity supply, for example. What good water supply, for example? And you might want to also implement that in your home country. Yeah, so those are some of the benefits.
Thank you very much. Mubarak, would you like to add some more?
Yeah, this is actually a very interesting phenomenon because my colleague here, he's from the Gambia, and statistics in Africa have shown that Gambia and another country, Cape Verde, they happen to have the highest number of these people that migrate, emigrate out of their countries to go and work abroad. And as he mentioned, our countries most of the time, even though it's hurting our economy, it's hurting our workforce and all, but our people tend to forget about this and focus on the returns. People go out there, make money, send money to the families, or send money to whoever they left behind, and this money circulates and people are happy. They forget the negative effects of this migration, and luckily, actually, a few minutes ago, even before our show started, I was reading a statement that was made by the Nigeria's Minister of Health about the migration of doctors specifically out of Nigeria. He admitted the fact that a huge number of Nigerian doctors leave the country. Actually, it used to be in hundreds, but now we count it in thousands, unfortunately. This is really sad, and he admitted that fact. But instead of trying to come up with a way to change that motive, say something that might be inspirational, or that might attract these doctors back home. But he was he was trying to be proud, to show some pride. Like, our doctors are highly trained, they are very skillful, and that is why these countries outside tend to call them to come and work for them. But that is not the fact. That's not true. That's not true, because if you compare the skills that people or doctors gain out there, you can't even make any comparison with the doctors in Nigeria. This is a country whereby one doctor, the ratio of a doctor to patient is so big, one doctor to 1,000 patients. It's very unfortunate. How do you expect that doctor to have time for research, or to actually study something further for his own self, or to even go back to school and acquire more knowledge? It doesn't work that way. Doctors out here are into academics as well as they're into their clinical practice, and they have research opportunities, they have facilities, they have everything they need at their disposal. What is this basic factor that actually discourage employees and make them want to leave their country? This is the working condition itself. Don't even talk about health professionals only. Talk about everybody, the workforce of a country. People are not, workers are not being provided with their basic amenities, like health insurance. They don't have an insurance package that covers for their own life and safety. They don't have that. They are not provided with accommodation. They have to find where they will live with the little they earn. They have families to look after. They have their own lives to think about. They might want to study, but the system does not favor that type of dream. Like, okay, I'm a doctor in Nigeria. I want to practice at the same time. I want to go into different professions or different specialties. The system does not favor such things. What do you expect? Of course, people will seek better place. Unfortunately.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. We will still dive more into the medical aspect.
Sure.
Yeah. So about the losses, Mr. Lawrence, what are the various losses associated with migration and brethren in Africa?
fact, I prefer using the word brain circulation than brain drain. But based on your question, I think one, economically, yeah, because it's perceived that all these people who are absconding into recipient nations are actually taxpayers. And once they abscond, the tax of this nation, especially Africa, where so many of our natural resources have been stolen. So the little GDP we are having is even from the bogus taxpayers' money. So taxpayer, then the fact that we call them high quality professionals. When your country is losing her high quality professionals, you are left with mediocres. And because you're left with mediocres, your citizens are in danger in all aspects of the economy. Engineering, medical, architectural, all aspects. You understand? Because don't forget that, for example, a doctor who graduated in Nigeria and worked for like 5 years before absconding have acquired 5 years knowledge. Unlike the new graduate that just came in, okay, yes, you can quietly replace him, but you can't replace the knowledge he has acquired. So that is where the drain in it comes. But as I told you earlier, if maybe so many African nations can perceive this from the context of countries like India. India export more doctors than Nigeria, but India is not complaining because they are looking at this what on the profitability side. We chunk them out, professionally sound. Then we do what? We export them to other nations, and they bring in what? Remittances, GDP. So because we are not seeing that, that is why Nigeria GDP is dropping. So it's like more or less like brain circulation. But depending on the context the nation in quote is handling his or her own, not their context, then it can become a drain or it can become what? An circulation. So to me, it's more or less income, substandard or inexperienced, low quality professionals, because the high quality ones have acquired the knowledge over time and now absconded to their recipient nations.
Thank you very much. I have a very interesting question for Mr. Peter. So, according to you, you said there are, what do you call it? There are gains, brain drain, and migration, and you made mention of jamming and poaching, and some other developed countries are poaching qualified skills, skilled workers in Africa. Now, my question is, do migration and brain drain really have much negative impact on the origin countries? Yes, let's take for example, right? A qualified personnel, right, with no employment or no contribution to socio-economic development. Of course, they are not going to be absorbed into the job market anyways, if you look at it, although it might happen eventually. But look at the global high cost of living in every country in this current century. No one wants to take that chances, right? They want a better life for themselves, for their family. They want to develop skills. They want to gain knowledge. They want to move from where they are to a higher place. So now, since in their country they were not given the opportunity to be in the job market, and they are migrating to other countries, they're immigrating, do you think it really makes any difference at all?
I think migration, again, I have mixed feelings about it. It's those things that like sometimes you're not in agreement in your mind about what's happening, but your heart maybe is for it. Yeah. Because when you look at like the development of Africa, let's say from 2000 itself, the whole African continent, in relation to the world event, it's very slow. Like everywhere in the world there is development, but Africa's development is actually very slow. And migration also has been increasing since then, but the remittances we've been talking about are also increasing. So as migration increases, remittances increase. Now you might think that that's good. Again, it's good for the households, for the individuals. But the fact that Africa in general, as a whole, is developing very slowly in relation to other continents should show that, well, there has not been that net benefit when it comes to development in Africa. Because I think the most important resource is what human resource. That's the most important thing. It is people that should develop a nation primarily. It is people that should innovate. You get it? So if we have those people, that is one side of it. You're gonna have mixed feelings. If you have those people who should bring in the innovation, you get it, to solve the problems of Africa, be it economic problems, be it security, get it, be it even producing, let's say, inventing a cooking pot that is, let's say, a little bit away from the local ones that we know it's a good thing, but we do not have that. But the other side of it is that would those people, like you alluded to earlier, would those people be able to do that if they were in Africa? Or if they live in Africa? Are they going to be able to do that? You know, when I think about Elon Musk sometimes, I'm like, if he was in South Africa, would he have been Elon Musk? You know, who would he have been Elon Musk? You know? So the problem of Africa is that it does not produce, I think we've alluded to that environment, that enabling environment for people to be able to prosper, to be able to create, to be able to innovate. When you look at Nigeria, I see Nigeria should be the America of Africa. I always say that. But so far, its GDP right now is second, but so far it hasn't shown that. Why? Because there's a lot of insecurity in Nigeria. So would you want to, how are you going to live? Like, you are like so insecure, you are even afraid of going to school, afraid of going to work, thinking that when your wife goes out, you are worried that maybe someone might attack her. When your kid goes out, you are worried that someone might attack him or her. What are you going to think about? Just moving to somewhere safer that you can live a good life. So basically, it's kind of two-sided again. But overall, I would say it's not good. It has not been good. It hasn't helped Africa. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, now I would also like to ask you one question. Does lack of employment justify migration? I'll give you the statistics. Right? In 2017, 17% and 35% of graduates left Lebanon and Morocco, respectively. For example, 600 engineers leave Morocco annually. If we go with across the graduates of 4 engineering schools in Morocco. So that is like most of their engineers are immigrating in the country. Basically, they don't have much left in the country. Now, another statistics in Ghana. In Ghana, which is also experiencing an economic crisis, the government announced a freeze on public sector recruitment in 2022, which means the government stopped recruiting. So there is like a gap. There are no employment, and we can say this is a major factor, really, one of the major factors why people are immigrating from their country. Do you think because there is an unemployment in the country, it justifies the act of immigrating?
I think there are several factors. Employment will not be the only thing. I think when someone migrates, it doesn't migrate just because of unemployment, right? There could be other, let's say, security reasons, maybe to unite with your family and things like that. But employment is a very important thing. You don't want to go to school, acquire your skills, like just to sit down at home and do nothing. If your government is not going to employ you to do something, you have to think about something else. And the thing is, even if your government employs you, it has to be able to give you that environment, the equipment that you need. For example, for doctors, you want to go to a hospital where it's well equipped, you get it. And sometimes I even learned that even in Nigeria, maybe in other countries it do happen. Doctors have to pay for patients, how do you call it? To have their, is it consultations or maybe to do some tests or things like that, because they can't afford it. You don't have the right equipment there. So, because when you're working, you also want to be satisfied in what you do. If someone pursues a degree for 4 years or 6 years or maybe 10 years, they are passionate about this. They want at the end of the day, when they are practicing their job, that they are satisfied. So satisfaction comes with what? Providing them with what they need. So that when they carry out their task, they know that, okay, I'm not only doing a job, but this is also a work that I do because I find happiness in it. So there are several factors, and employment is important. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's the only factor, but it's very important. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now we are moving to the costly migration of health practitioners. I know Barak has been dying to speak on this topic. Yeah, and now I will give you the opportunity to talk about it more. Like from in recent years, we've experienced like massive migration and brain drain in the sector of not just medical sector, but generally IT, pharmacy, other major sector in the countries in Africa. Now we have some statistics. Now, I'm giving you the statistics to show how bad it is in Africa. So, according to the WHO, right, the minimum standard set by the WHO, Barack said this, mentioned it earlier, to ensure basic healthcare services is 20 physicians per 100,000 people. 38 countries in sub-Saharan Africa fall short of the minimum standard, and 13 of these have 5 or fewer, which means 5 doctors to 100,000, which is kind of really, really bad, terrible, I would say. Now, in 1993, UNDP Human Development Report indicated that more than 21,000 Nigerian doctors were practicing in the United States alone, while Nigeria suffers from a shortage of doctors. If we were to add the number of Nigerian doctors in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states, Europe, Australia, and those in other African countries, the figure would be close to 30,000. Now, moving to Ghana. In 2004, Ghana lost more than £35 million spent on the training of health practitioners who left for the UK, which saved £65 million on training of doctors thanks to selective migration. This is what Mr. Lawrence was talking about, the mutual agreement. Now, my question is, when you look at the statistics, a country trains its citizens to become professionals for the country, and after this training, they migrate, they emigrate, they don't look back, they don't think about the country that trained them. Now, what do you think the government can do in this aspect? Should there be a penalty for this particular type of thing? Mr. Lawrence, what do you think?
Wow.
Sounds ironic.
Wow.
It's really wow.
Anyway, you could see from your statistics, out of 46 sub-Saharan nations, 33 defaulting from WHO standards. To me, I don't think the country has a right to penalize anyone, because if, for instance, Russia, or Far Eastern Federal University, their government didn't make this citadel of learning very comfortable for their citizens, they will abscond. So if you cannot provide the basic, Africans, one thing with us is that we are resilient. Africans don't ask you for the excesses, just the basics. If you cannot provide the basics, what do you want the person to do? Okay, you trained me in university, you paid everything, beautiful. Where are the hospitals? Those of us who are in the system, we know what is happening. Doctors in Nigeria currently are working as casuals. Do you know what is casual staffing? Casuals. They are not within the government pay. It's just within the hospital that whatever the hospital generates, they are being paid. Casual working, which has been globally, even by ILO, they've abolished casual working. Doctors currently, before I left in September, some doctors are working as casuals. So Nigeria is not lacking doctors. By the time they say we're immigrating doesn't stop the doctors in the country from being useful. It's just that the country lies to herself. You refuse to re-employ. You refuse to bring the necessary amenities. You refuse to bring the structural, the economical, the IT. What do you want the doctor to use? So to me, if I'm being sued, I will sue them back. Because you don't have any standard to sue me based on what? When there are no offices for doctor to sit. When heat is killing you, like right now, heat is killing them in Nigeria. There's no light. You're operating on a patient and they are taking light off and on. And you forget any of the instruments within the substance of this patient. This patient sues you in millions. And you can have the possibility of immigrating where you are working at peace. Where you not only are working at peace, you are acquiring more knowledge. The first heart surgery that ever happened in Nigeria, who brought it? It was Kanu Nwankwo, the famous footballer. He was one that opened the Heart Foundation in Africa because he went to play football in what? In UK. If not that he immigrated and was a professional, would he have had that privilege of sending such things back to the nation? The first man that found that prototype of HIV cure, what's his name? is it Dr. I've forgotten his name in the late 90s. Nigeria responded him that he's saying rubbish. America took him, and he became one of the best in UK, in United States. So do you blame the man for immigrating? So to me, the African nations are liars. African nations, the leaders are deceivers. Because like Nigeria is very rich, but the richness is only between 10% of the populace. Yes, an average Nigerian can earn 1 million a month. An average Nigerian. But what is the minimum wage in Nigeria? 33,000 naira. And the 33,000 naira is less than $3 in a month. And you want him, if you had the privilege to immigrate, to stay back, and you want to sue me for immigrating?
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. I see you took this personally.
Can I just
That's someone who experiences it.
Yeah,
just
sure.
quick comment. You know, when it comes to students that are being sponsored, or maybe workers, government employees that are being sponsored by government to undertake like trainings abroad and things like that, normally you're being bonded, right? Or if you're offered a scholarship,
Yes,
so
I wanted to speak about that.
yeah,
also,
after your
on the
education,
bond.
after your education, you have to like serve for like 2 years, in
For a
some cases
specific
like
time,
5
yeah.
years, you know. And things. So then, now with regards to Christina's question, now when you serve that and you complete your 2 years or your 5 years, now do you have the right to go? For some people, they might feel like I don't owe the country anything because I've served you. Well, this was an agreement between me and you that you're going to sponsor me. Then after that, I will serve you for 2 years. After that, like Roland said, you don't have the right to keep me. But again, is it all about the money? Is it all about the money, or should we at least sometimes consider the communities that we are serving? Or I'm not saying this is the right thing. You know, I'm just bringing up something that we can, talk about. Should we consider that these are our countries? And maybe in staying, also there's something we can do in order to change the situation. Instead of just maybe complaining on the government, maybe for doctors or maybe for those that are interested in politics or maybe footballers, is there something you can do within your communities to kind of like bring something, help the nation or help the community itself than migrating?
Okay. I know where you're headed, but I don't want to who gets that in a minute. Okay, so I have a big question for Mubarak, but I'll give you some statistics before I ask you. So 1/3 of Ethiopian medical doctors have already left the country. There are more Ethiopian trained doctors practicing in the city of Chicago alone than in Ethiopia. In Zambia, the public sector only retained 50 out of 600 doctors trained in the country's medical school from 1978 to 1999. For instance, Malawi struggles to keep its doctors because of limited facilities, and often this leads health professionals to trade and settle abroad. Also, according to a source, the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives has reported there is now a ratio of 1 nurse to 1,160 patients. Its president said that more than 75,000 nurses had left Nigeria since 2017. Why do we have this massive amount of migration and bringing? What are we lacking? What is missing?
Oh yeah, thank you very much. This is very interesting. Why? Because as Mr. Lowe said, he would prefer to call it like instead of brain drain, he would like to call it brain circulation. This is it's absolutely true if we take it we look at the positive side of it, yeah. And from some of the points that he mentioned and Mr. Peter here, what I see personally is like our people they are prisoners in their own land. Absolutely, because you are meant to work under very unfavorable, impossible conditions. I mean, come on. According to the Nigerian Medical Association, don't even go to the nurses yet. According to the Nigerian Medical Association, they gave out this statistic, and that is what has been adopted or has been taken by WHO. We have the ratio of 4 doctors to 10,000 patients. I mean, come on. What do you expect in this case? There will be so many problems. A doctor working in such environment is vulnerable to making a lot of mistakes. and misdiagnosing of patients and so on. But another thing that I would like to talk about is like, sometimes we look at this problem from a little bit different angle. We should at least try to see, have an eagle eye on the problem. Mr. Law mentioned about the casual doctors. This is mainly attributed to underemployment. We always look at unemployment, but we are forgetting about underemployment. What is it? We misuse the skills of these people. For example, a doctor should be working full-time. You come to give him a job to work as a part-time doctor, or you ask him to work until someday when you are able to raise some money as a medical institution, then you'll be able to pay him. That doesn't make any sense. Do you understand? You take a doctor to give him the work of like an administrator in the hospital, where he's supposed to be wearing his white gown to help patients. You spoke about Ghana in recent years freezing their employment procedure. Does that mean people are not retiring? People retire. So why are we not employing the upcoming generation? Why not? It's, we have this problem of misplaced priority. Our people tend to, look at, okay, we have this number of doctors, so what if others leave? We don't understand the long-term effect is what matters. Over the years, if every day, or let's say every month, 10 doctors leave, how many will that add up to at the end of the year? How many will that add up in 5 years, in a decade? This is a lot. This is very, very unfortunate. Yeah, you have a doctor, like 4 doctors, attending to 10,000 patients. That is outrageous. And don't forget, the economy itself is not working, because these patients, out of these 10,000 patients, I can't promise you that 20% of them can actually afford the procedures that will be prescribed to them by the doctors. Then it still comes back to the doctor, as Mr. Peter mentioned earlier. Sometimes the doctors have to use what they have from their own coffers to pay for their patient procedures, because the patient cannot afford it. What is the problem? Where are we heading as a continent? Where are we heading to as a continent? We always admire these developed countries. We always admire them, and then that is what attracts our people to run away there. But our leaders don't care about that. They don't care. If people are leaving, instead of you to try to look at why, to try to fix the why, you come out to tell that, oh, this is because we train very highly professional doctors or engineers or IT specialists. That is why other countries try to call them or to come and work for them. That is stupidity. That's ridiculous. I'm sorry to say. Yeah, and as I mentioned about underemployment, most of the countries in Africa, or the developing countries, we only tend to every day mention unemployment. How about underemployment? Underemployment. This is very important. This is very important. Why should a doctor work as a casual worker? Why? It's even better for him to actually be attached to a clinic or to a healthcare institution and then have a contract with another place than for him to only be there like as a freelancer. This is very unfortunate. It doesn't make sense.
This seems a little bit more serious than
It is. It is.
It's actually disheartening.
It's heartbreaking. Heartbreaking.
Can I just say that it's actually true, because when you're thinking about migration, just like most of the problems Africa or challenges Africa is facing today, of course we can look inwards, right? We can look to ourselves, to say, okay, we are the cause of these problems because of, let's say, failed government policies, lack of concept, things like that. But you can also think about it internationally, like globally, what's happening. Because globally, there's this difference between rich and poor, like global north and global south. That may not be attributable to Africa per se or any individual country per se. It's just like a global system that has been happening like for years or maybe centuries. So now you have these developed countries that are highly developed, highly rich, and you have these poor countries. Now when we are in Africa, for example, you look at these countries, they are attractive, right? You're going there for the money, because, well, it's more economically viable and attractive. But also because of the legacies, I would say, of colonialism. We've had this interaction between us Africans, we say, and colonial masters, and you want to be like that. But that's how it has been. Because most of our culture has been changed. We dress like them, we talk like them, we even want to laugh like them. Get it? And so when you go there, you see all these things that they've innovated, that they've created. You want that. We don't have that in Africa. You want that. You want the iPhones, you want the TVs and things like that. So these things kind of play in our minds. They play in our minds. Maybe you might not blame us for that, but it's also like a problem. It's also a problem. The fact that we have been colonized by people, and then most of our culture has been changed, and we want to emulate them, be like them, and the fact that there are these differences in the world, economic differences, that creates like a lot of problems for poor countries. Yeah.
If we want to be like them, why not emulate their own ways in our own country?
Yeah, character.
Why not? Yeah, why not? Try to bring those, or try to copy those development that they make in their own countries.
Yeah. I think
We have this problem. I will never forget. In 2017, Nigerian government had to take somewhat a good step at the wrong time, I would say. They came up with this policy whereby they blocked all our credit cards from working outside the border of the country. Why? Because people will steal money. Let me just put it in a simple term. Steal money, or they will loot funds, put it on their cards, go abroad, withdraw this money in foreign currency and bring it back home and keep it. Or withdraw this money out there, buy things or invest in things over there and come back home to just sit down and continue complaining together with the masses. How does that make any sense to you? You steal the money from your country, take it out there to go and spend in their own country. At least we know, okay, we're not going to just point fingers like our countries are corrupt, issue. No. Every country has its own problems, its own minuses. The so-called developed countries, the Western countries, have, if you will look into their own corruption profile, it is outrageous. Yeah, it's outrageous. But what do? They put their countries first. Okay, we keep it moving. We build the infrastructure. Then we look at our own selfish interests. But in our own countries, it's vice versa. The reverse is the case. Our people just tend to, think about, how much do I need to keep for my children for them to be happy forever? How about the masses that voted for you? How about the people that brought you into that office, or that actually made you who you are?
Okay, let's turn it down. Let's say in the aspect of IT, political professionals, social professionals, this also affects them. Recently, the Vice President of Zimbabwe, he threatens to criminalize foreign movement of his citizens. Now, we know this surrendering and migration is not going to stop anytime soon unless something huge is done about it. Now, when we talk about the recipient countries, the Western world and European countries, do you think putting a stop to accepting professional workers from African countries is the best thing to do? Would you advise it? Would you maybe advocate for it for Western countries, European countries to stop importing professional workers from Africa? Do you think it's going to help? Or do you think it's further going to deteriorate the economy of African countries?
It doesn't help actually. For time immemorial, human beings have been moving like up and down. So, Mr. Lawrence alluded to earlier, stopping someone from moving out of the country when he hasn't committed any crime, you are infringing the person's human rights.
Absolutely.
Basically, people should have the choice.
Have the freedom to travel around.
Yeah, people should have the choice to do that. It's upon you. It's incumbent upon the government to create a kind of environment for people to stay. Because where people are going to, of course, they are alone in that. Because when you communicate with, let's say, your colleagues as doctors have been talking about doctors here since we began. But again, when you communicate with doctors, let's say in America, I was looking at the figures in America, and you are in Nigeria, so doctors in America earn 10 times more than you. And you have the same qualifications, but they are earning 10 times more than you. So that's kind of, if you do not have that, I don't want to say patriotism, but patriotism matters. You have to think about it sometimes, like love for your country, we've alluded to that also. But if you are not that strong, in your commitment, to your community, to your country, you can easily move out of the country. Yeah.
Okay, let me touch on, I'll give you a chance. Let me touch on that patriotism, okay? So now, look at IT professionals, look at political professionals. professionals. We know in Africa, we are not really there yet in technology. Now, when a professional in IT stays in Africa, any African country, and you're patriotic, you're hoping that things will get better, you're loyal to your country. But when you know you have a certain qualifications, you can go to the any of the Western country, you can establish yourself. In 2-3 years, you can get there, you can have something for yourself. I mean, you can upgrade your level. Now, look at political professionals, right? You know how politics is in Africa. It's not for the weak. It's different from the politics out there in the Western countries. Now, when you, I know you like politics. I don't know if Mubarak likes politics, but I know Peter likes politics. When you return to Gambia today, I want to be the president of Gambia. You know, it's going to be a stretch for you. You will have to do more than the people that were there before. You have different ideas because you came to Russia. You have these ideas, you have these prospects different from what they have back home, and some people can see that as a threat. Let's be quite honest with ourselves. They can see that as a threat. But when you go to developed countries, to Western countries, you know, people welcome your ideas, they welcome your prospects. Now you see the gap we have in Africa and Western countries. So I'm touching on this patriotism thing. Yeah, most people, no, let me not say most people. Some people are really patriotic, they are loyal, but it is more than patriotism and loyalty. When you put all these factors together, you can't really come out of your shell in some African countries. I would say in Nigeria, you can't really come out of your shell because there are people who will not go with your idea, they will threaten you, they won't, yeah, it's something like they won't allow you to thrive. However, it's different when you go to developed countries. So now I will give everyone a chance to rephrase what you said about patriotism and what it has to do with staying in your country and being loyal to your country.
Since I came up with the term, I mean, I, I brought it up, let me go first. Now, you know, when I was going home, I mean, like 2 months ago, when I go to the embassy, Gambian embassy in Moscow, the accountant said to me, you know, like, we need you guys, you know, you have to come back home when you are done, you know, to come and help your country. I was like, yeah, I think this is something we should consider really. And we also once had a Zoom meeting with our ambassador, and we talked about this thing, you know, yeah, you guys have to come back home, you know, and work for your country, work for your government. Yeah, I think we need to consider this. So when I got to Casablanca, like from Domodedovo Airport in Moscow, and you can see how beautiful the airport is and how huge it is. So when I got to Casablanca, it was totally different. It's like I was I don't want to say this like on camera though.
Yeah, don't say that.
But you can see the difference. You get it. Well, I know I'm from Africa, you know, but because of the time that I've spent here and the things that I've seen, the infrastructure that I've seen, so when I was transported to Africa, it was completely different. I was like, wow. So I had to think twice again that, yeah, but this is my continent, this is Africa. We can compare. When I got to the Gambia, to the airport in Gambia, I was like, I'm not coming back, man. There's no way I'm coming back to this country. Yeah, because like it was so hot, like inside the airport. It was so hot, and it's an airport. It was just like a garage or something. So you know, things like that. You know, these facilities like that also play into people's minds. You know, but also the fact that you know you've lived in Russia or you've lived away for a long time, and you've adapted to the culture of the country. You know, you think about you know the fact that if you go home, you may not fit in. You know, I think about that. You know, I do think about that. You know, and when I went home, I kind of somehow felt like a stranger. You know, sometimes it's
I mean, first-hand experience.
yeah, you have to just calm down a little bit and think. You know, twice a little bit. These are my people. This is my continent. So you can't blame yourself for that. This is just something that is happening. But at the same time, when we talk about you know we going back and that patriotism thing. Personally, what I do tell my guys is that when I go back, they will kill me. Because if I want to work in government, and I want to be close to the president. But I do tell them, if I go back, they will kill me. Because I don't know, maybe this is just the spirit that I have right now. I want to get something done. Like really. I don't know whether it's because I've not been put beside the papers, you know, the money and things like that to corrupt me. But as of now, right now, this is what I have in mind. This is what is in my heart. To get something done. But how can you get something done when people, like we alluded to earlier, are actually scared of your skills and your knowledge? You might find that most people have only a bachelor's degree, for example, and then you go in and you're supposed to be their boss. I've witnessed, I've seen this. Like I know a person that has gone through this at the University of the Gambia. The guy got a PhD in the US and came to the Gambia, University of the Gambia, and was supposed to be the registrar. But the guy that he met there had actually a master's degree. So he was supposed to be leading this guy. But according to a friend of mine, close friend of mine working at the university, said the guy he met at the university said he was not leaving the office for him. Now what happened? He frustrated the guy left. Where is the guy now? He was absorbed by Ghana, the Ghanaian government. Now he lives in Ghana. And there are so many other people, so many examples like that. Yeah. So part of the thing is that you are afraid that when you go, there's going to be this competition, not based on merit, but because of the fact that you have higher qualifications. But Africa has to be prepared for its own people. The governments, African government, have to be prepared for us that are outside studying, that when we come, we will be able to stay. The people don't have to be afraid. We will just share our skills and knowledge with them to develop our countries.
Thank you very much. I have this interesting question for Mr. Lawrence. So the population of Africa is expected to double in 2050. What does the world look like for Africa in 2050, especially for the youth and prospective? Yes, especially for the youth and prospective professionals.
Well, straightforward answer is very bleak. The future is bleak. And why I said that is if the mentality of African leaders does not change, the immigration will be doubled. And since it's doubling, you can see there's danger it's posing even in the Western nations. So many Nigerian doctors, so many Nigerian professionals, the highly qualified professionals, some of them are doing mega jobs abroad. It's not everybody that is actually privileged. So to me, I will be on the school of thought. For you to have effective service delivery, for you to sacrifice your job satisfaction on the altar of patriotism, no. Because there must be job satisfaction, and job satisfaction brings what? Effective service delivery in any service you're rendering, whether as a doctor, as an IT, as an engineer, as a carpenter, as a mechanic, whatever you do, you need job satisfaction for you to deliver. So the African leaders, based on whether regional blocks or AU as a whole, should first and foremost work on the what? On the resource management of the continent, so that you give them proper landing base. When there's a proper landing base, it's like a demand and supply. For those of us who are economists, if you give a proper landing base, I'm telling you, you and I will not spend the next 1 week here. Everybody will relocate to Nigeria. Because if one naira is equivalent to, let's say $1 is equivalent to 1 naira, what are we doing here? What are you doing? You don't have any reason to be here. So you don't need to force them, you don't need to take them, sue them to court, you don't need to do anything. It's just, wow, is that my country? Okay, look at, for instance, briefly, a state in Nigeria, Aba, is celebrating 2 weeks uninterrupted air supply. Everybody is
2024.
Everybody's praising the government. Electricity. So you can imagine if that electricity is sustained for just 2 months, half of Nigeria will relocate to Aba.
Absolutely.
So I think the onus lies on our leadership.
Thank you.
Let them do the needful.
Thank you. For Mubarak, I have this interesting question for you. It's okay, the last question. So, aside what Mr. Lawrence said, right, creating a convenience basis for all stakeholders, what else do you think the government should address? You know, it's not just about giving them the basis, the convenience basis, like money and financial freedom. What about insecurities, political unrest, and the likes of that? What do you think the government should do regarding this? Because you know how things are. For example, Nigeria right now, you go to work, you're coming back, they kidnap you, they ask for ransom, you don't pay it, they kill you, you're gone. So what do you think the government can do in this case?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. You know, speaking of patriotism, all of us here, the primary objective of the four of us sitting on this panel is because we're patriots. We're patriotic to our motherland, you know, to Africa as a continent. And as leaders of tomorrow, or as a leader of tomorrow, I would like to, you know, suggest, you know, from my own point of view, instead of like collaborating with those countries that our people run away to, like for them to stop people from coming in, or we penalize, putting sanctions on people traveling abroad, why not, you know, engage in some sort of multilateral policies with those countries, multilateral, not just bilateral, but multilateral policies that is going to address this problem of immigration. This is by what? By ensuring, not only ensuring favorable environment for working, but also compensation and also opportunity in advancing their skills. If we provide these people with opportunities for advancing their skills, this is by what? This is by, you know, engaging in some sort of multilateral, or let's say multilateral again, education training, whereby our people, they will bring those professionals, or like let's say professors, to come and educate our doctors at home, not you send them out there to go and learn. When they go there, they don't come back. Absolutely, this is one thing. And another thing, of course, insecurity is very important. Insecurity is the main problem that our people run away, and that is the also problem why people from outside countries don't want to come to our countries. Of course, in the past, a lot of people come from everywhere to Nigeria to come and invest their money or their skills in the country to build our economy. But now where are they? They all run away because everybody is afraid of his life. We, as the citizens of the country, don't want to stay. We can literally, somebody can run away from his own family to go and stay in another country. How do you expect somebody from that country to come and stay in your own country? It's impossible. We need to ensure our professionals with the security of their lives and properties. This is by what? If we're talking about healthcare workers, provide them with the basic health insurance policy that can secure, that can ensure you that, okay, not only that when I'm working I get good pay, but after I finish working, I'm sure that I will have saved, or I will have like a very interesting life to live for the rest of my days. This is very important. This is very important. Our insurance policy doesn't work in Africa. Why not? Why?
Thank you very much, Mr. Peter, Mendy, Mr. Lawrence, and Dr. Mubara. Thank you so much for your contribution and your perspectives today. We thank you once again for joining us and following our invites. Thank you so much. To our viewers online, thank you for the time you've spent with us today again. I would also want to say shout out to the Bantaba site team, shout out to the media team. We appreciate your effort. Thank you so much. And to our viewers, you see how bad the migration and migrate in Africa has gotten. So I hope in future the government would hopefully do something about it. And let's not forget today, 8th of March. We know what day it is, Women's Day. To all the women out there, we see your effort and we appreciate it. So next week or in 2 weeks' time, we'll be here again, the same venue at the same time. See you again. Have a nice day. Bye. Hello guys, we just concluded this episode of Bantaba. If you're watching this video, it means you already know how it went. I can bet you had a great time. We will be here next week, same time, same venue. Stay tuned. It's your favorite host, Christina. Bye.